Welcome to Parisoma. My name is Tiago Forte. I work for Faber Novel. Faber Novel, which is right over there in the corner, it's an innovation agency. We help large companies, large organizations think and act like startups by designing, building, and launching digital products and services. We manage Parisoma, which is the space where you are now. Parisoma is an open incubator. We have about 80 startups at any given time. We provide, in addition to space to work, startup services, classes, events, mentors, and we have space. So if you're interested in working on a project or you have a startup, please come talk to us. On the second page of your packet, everyone has a packet, right? There's some more up here if you need one. There's a little quiz. It's kind of a Cosmo-style, not very scientific in any way, shape, or form quiz. And you'll notice it's not very fair. It kind of says, do you ever do this? Do you ever do that? And it's unlikely anyone would score very well on this quiz. The quiz is designed to make you think, okay? To look at what areas in your life there are problems, in what areas you feel pain. So hopefully that pain will motivate you during this class to kind of look for solutions. Of course, the fact that you're already here is a pretty good sign. So let's get started. So why is Bruce Lee up here? If I had to summarize this whole class in one sentence, okay, just in case you need to leave early or something, it would be get things done like Bruce Lee, not like Jackie Chan. Okay? Think Bruce Lee, not Jackie Chan. I'll tell you what that means exactly at the end. So a little incentive to stay. So why are we here? To explore the 80-20 on the getting things done methodology, okay? By no means are we going to cover 100% or even 50% of it. We're looking for the 20-80, the 80-20. The 20% that provides 80% of the value. Sorry, I'm still trying to get used to this. So we're going to do that in 4 kind of modules that are kind of interspersed. There's principles, so kind of the theory. I'm going to try to minimize that. Practices, so more practical things. Challenges, so here's a point that you're going to have some trouble. And getting started. That's why you have the packet. We're going to do some exercises. So what are we not here to do? Just as important, right? Let's define the scope, because I read, so for those of you that were signed up like on Saturday or Friday, I sent out a little like pre-class quiz so I could kind of customize the course. If you signed up later, then you didn't get the quiz. It was just to kind of get an idea of what you guys were looking for. And needless to say, it spans a huge range from time management to not procrastinating to to-do lists to prioritizing. And I appreciate all those concerns. What we're really going to do today is focus on GTD, right? The core task management system that you use. So we're not going to talk about your life goals. We're not going to talk about the big picture. Why are we here? We're not going to talk about values or priorities. That's your business. That's personal. We're not going to talk about top-down thinking, which is like 7 habits of highly effective people, right? Like what's the big vision and then everything else will become clear. No, we're going to talk about the little nitty-gritty details. And we're not going to talk about project management or management in general, because these things are out of scope on the left. On the right, we're not going to talk about silver bullets, one size fits all, the right answer, quick fixes, etc., because those don't exist, right? Sorry to break it to you. Any questions? We're going to move pretty fast. If you have a question, just raise your hand at any time. It's likely I'm going to go, I'll answer that, or I'll talk about that later. So what is GTD? What is this thing that has sold millions of books and courses and that people are crazy about all over the world? In David Allen's words, it's a tool set, so practical, to help people focus their energy strategically and tactically, without letting anything fall through the cracks. Okay, so a little analogy. Who are these guys? Woo, yeah. It's the Brazil national team, right? They just beat the world champions Spain 3-0 the other day. That's right. So tell me something. Why do these people, the best soccer players in the world, why do they do drills? Why do they do passing drills and running drills and those things, where you do the certain feet motions? Why doesn't the coach just go, look, you guys are the most creative, skilled soccer players in the world. Just get on the field and do your thing. Just be creative. Okay, but can't they just see in the moment and just use their intuition and their talent?
No.
Why?
Because preparation is very important. You can't pull it just out of nowhere. Just very, very talented. You may not come so at the end. If you practice, you're certain of what you're doing.
But what does practice do? What is the value of practice? Makes the mechanical second nature, right? So if you can dribble and pass and receive and head and these things without thinking, what do you have more of? You have more, what's that? Success and more time and energy to focus on the part where you're flying in the air in front of the goal and you do this crazy scissor kick, backflip thing that no one's ever seen before, right? You make the easy parts mechanical so you can focus your creative energy on the difficult parts. And that's exactly what GTD is, okay? And it's a little counterintuitive because there's nothing difficult about GTD. It's just a series of really simple concepts which makes you kind of think, this is childish. This is simplistic for me. I'm an intelligent, skilled person. Why am I going to use this little system? And the reason is you have to make as much as possible of your work second nature without thinking so you can focus your creative energy on the rest. So what's the problem that we're trying to solve? We all have more to do than time to do it. Just breaking news, right? You probably know this very well. This is what we deal with every day. Just in case you needed confirmation, this is a study done by researchers at San Diego State looking at how many words enter our brain each day. So over our lifetimes from 2013 to 2083, the amount of information entering our brain is supposed to increase almost 7 times. And this is assuming no acceleration. So this is the same rate of increase. Does anyone feel like they can handle 7 times what they're dealing with now? Or 5 times, or 2 times, or 1 time? Okay. So before we talk about the solution, so what GTD prescribes, let's talk about the status quo. So in the world of GTD, what is the worst case scenario? And that's crisis response mode. Okay? Crisis response mode is characterized by 3 things mostly. 1, it's easier, right? It's much easier to deal with a never-ending stream of work that's right in front of you, that's obvious, than to take a step back and think, what am I doing? What are the priorities to process it in a structured way? Also, it's not your fault, right? It was a crisis. Crises are no one's fault. It's like when you're at school, when someone pulls the fire alarm drill, you're just overjoyed. You're like, I don't have to be in class, and it's not my fault. It's awesome. I love those days. And third, it's unexpected, right? Something blows up. It's not because you failed to anticipate it, failed to create a system to deal with this crisis. No, it's a crisis. All bets are off, okay? So I'm not going to harp on these points, but just something to keep in mind. So let's do a little kind of, not exactly hands-on, but a little exercise here. Look at exercise 1 in your packets. It's on page 3. Everyone has a packet, right? Okay, so please take just a second. Think of something that is worrying you, okay? Something on your mind that is nagging at you, weighing on you. Just one thing. And write it in the first box, okay? I have a big project at work. It's weighing me down. My cat is lost. I'm worried about her. My tire is flat. Just anything. Don't think about it too much. In the first box. In the second box, write your perfect outcome. So if this situation, whatever it is, were to be solved to your perfect satisfaction, what would it look like? So I have a flat tire. So the outcome is tire gets fixed cheaply, there's no issues. If you have a big client project at work, the outcome could be project is delivered, client is happy, project is profitable. In the third box, write the very next step, the next physical, tangible step that you would have to take to achieve that outcome. Only the next step. So if your tire is flat, first thing you might need to do is look up the phone number for the mechanic. Something very simple, just stage one, step one. Okay, and when you're finished, look up here so I can see. Okay, so that took 30 seconds maybe. Science tells us that just that little exercise produced for you a little tiny bit of relaxation, a little tiny bit of release, because you clarified the outcome. First of all, you recorded what you were worrying about, you clarified the outcome, and you clarified the next step. Do you feel it? Okay, it's small, but what we're looking for is that tiny little sense of relaxation times all of the projects and all of the tasks in your life. And that makes a big difference. So what is the solution according to GTD? It's a simple 5-step process. 1, collect. By the way, I'm going to send you all of these slides, and we're going to send you a recording of the class, so don't worry about taking copious notes. 1, collect every single thing you have to do in your life in one place. Process each thing by clarifying the outcome you want and the next action to get there. 3, organize reminders of these actions in a system you trust. 4, review these reminders on a regular basis. And 5, do them. Pretty simple, right? But between these lines, there are many, many profound ideas, in my opinion, profound, which we're going to explore. These correspond to the 5 phases of GTD. Collect, process, organize, review, do. So nothing too fancy here. So any questions before we dive into the 5 stages? Okay. Here is the GTD workflow diagram. It's not the prettiest one you've ever seen, but it's the original one from the original book, so it's kind of like the Old Testament of GTD diagrams. And we're going to stick with it. It looks a little bit daunting, right? It looks like a lot of decisions you have to make, a lot of complex processes you have to manage. But really, just think of this thing as a funnel and a filter. Okay? So most people have a to-do list. They think of something, they put it on the to-do list. That approach is wrong. Okay? Your to-do list is sacred. Right? You have to protect it. You have to think about what deserves to be on there. If it deserves to be on there, what it is, what action you need to take, what outcome you want to achieve. So you want this filter and this funnel to be very, very strict in what it lets through. And ideally, what makes it down here will be very, very important, very clear, actionable items. So phase 1, collect. As David Allen says, most people's productivity system consists of incomplete lists of unclear things. And it sounds ridiculous, but think how true that is some of the time. So in phase 1, we worry about the incomplete part, right? What are you going to do until at the very least your list is complete? I know we're talking in a lot of abstractions now, but it's going to improve. So the phase 1 deals with this box right here, the green box. We did, in exercise 1, which took 30 seconds, we did the whole spine of the diagram. So you see it can be very fast. And in a minute we're going to do this one. So just a little bit more of the kind of theory, so you'll understand the terminology that I'm using. So according to GTD, stress is simple. Stress doesn't come from too many things to do. Okay, not at all. There's some people that have a million more things to do than you that are not as stressed as you, and there's people that have far less to do than you and are more stressed. Stress comes from inappropriately managing internal commitments. These internal commitments are called open loops in GTD. You'll hear a lot of talk about open loops. An open loop is simply anything in your life that is unfinished. So anything to which you attach an ought to, should, must, want to. Anything that should be different, that should be in a different state. So every email in your inbox is an open loop. Every voicemail on your phone is an open loop. Every burnt out light bulb, flat tire, every little thing in your life, physical, digital, or mental, that is unfinished in some way. Okay, so as you can imagine, there's probably many thousands in your life, somewhere. Now, the problem with this is our brains do not fit into the modern world, okay? And I'll tell you what I mean by this. Our brains are too fast and too slow. They're too smart and they're too stupid for the economy we live in. I'll tell you what I mean. If your brain was smart, it would remind you exactly to do something when you can do it, right? So you'd go to the supermarket with no list, and you would stand there in the front, and your brain would go, oh, we're at a supermarket. Okay, you need milk, eggs, cheese, fruit, dun, 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 bam, finished, right? Then when you're at the mechanic, you'd walk up to the mechanic, and your brain would go, oh, you need to change your oil, you need to change the water, you need to do this, do that, right? But that's not what happens with our brain, right? You walk into the supermarket, and it goes, oh, you have a flat tire, oh, you forgot to close the garage door, oh, you forgot to send lunch with your kid. Then you go to the mechanic and it go, oh, you forgot the fruit, you forgot the eggs, you forgot the cheese, right? Your brain has no sense of time or place. As soon as you tell your brain that it should do something, as soon as you open a loop, your brain thinks that you should be doing it at all times, at all places. And that's the source of stress, according to GTD. But your brain is also too smart, right? Because if your brain was stupid, you could trick it. You could say, brain, I can't do anything about that. Just stop worrying about it. And your brain would go, okay, you're the boss. I believe you. And it would just not worry about it, right? But your brain's too smart. It knows when you have an open loop that you need to close. It knows when you have commitments that you need to clarify. And thus the modern condition. So just finishing up with this section, your brain is like RAM in a computer. What happens if you run too many programs on your computer? Starts breaking down, right? You can do stuff. You can get stuff done. But you start to get the beach ball of death and all this kind of lagging and stuff. That's because your brain, like RAM, is a focus tool, not a storage tool. It's a focus tool, not a storage tool. There's studies where subjects, if they try to keep in their mind 4 single-digit numbers, just 4 numbers, like 4, 6, 2, 9, their performance on a range of tasks suffers noticeably. Think about that. Basic tasks like word puzzles. And now think of all the stuff that we try to remember and the complexity of the tasks that we try to do. It's really crazy if you think about it. As David Allen says, use your mind to think about things, not of them. As much of your thinking as possible should be adding value to projects and people, not just reminding yourself that they exist. Ouch, right? Conviction. And this brings us to our first challenge, which is getting it out of your head. So now you're like, okay, I'm convinced. I'm not going to keep anything in my head. Okay? It's more difficult than it sounds, trust me. So where do you collect all these open loops? Okay? You're convinced, you have the motivation. How do you do it? You do that in collection buckets or collection containers. These are a few examples. Physical inbox, your iPhone app, Moleskine, voice recorder. There's an infinite number of collection buckets. You can use whichever ones you want. That's up to you, as long as you follow 3 rules. Okay? First of all, every open loop must be captured. If the tools you're using can't capture the loops that you have, you need to maybe add some. Second, you need to have as few buckets as possible. So if you're like me and you love trying out new apps and you're like, oh my god, I have an app for recording thoughts, and this app is for recording brainstorms, and this app is for recording, like every single type of thing, that's probably not going to work. You don't need that many collection buckets. And third, you must empty them regularly, very regularly, like every day or at least every week. And we'll see the difference. And most people immediately think of their inbox. Right? Your inbox is probably your primary collection bucket, does not get emptied regularly. Inbox 0, right? And I would argue, and GTD would argue, that it's not because you receive too many emails. It's because your downstream systems are not effective, right? If the downstream is clogged up, is not efficient at processing those emails, those tasks, then it gets clogged up all in your inbox. But that's another topic, it's out of scope. So we can talk about that in the Q&A if you like. So throughout this presentation, I'm going to show you what I do when it starts with my here, like what I actually do. These are screenshots from my computer, my apps. I want to emphasize this is not because I do it perfectly or because I'm like the wisest GTD person ever. It's really because I am ruthless when it comes to simplicity. I do not tolerate complex tools when it comes to productivity. And I think that's a good approach for someone who's starting to get into this, is just to keep it ruthlessly simple. So I use Things. I've tried a lot of different task management apps. There's different pros and cons, of course. There's no perfect one, but the one I like the best is Things, mostly because it has very few features, and it does those very well. So here's for iPhone. Here's for Mac. So turn to exercise 2 in your packet, please, on page 3. So in exercise 2, in the first column, I'd like you to write down 5 open loops that are in your mind right now, okay? Preferably things that aren't on your normal to-do list, that aren't otherwise kind of in a process, things that are kind of floating, open loops that are floating in your brain. Write them in column 1. Don't think too much about it, just kind of get it off your mind. And look up here when you're done so I can see. Okay, almost finished. So in the book, David doesn't leave this up to chance. He doesn't go, just think of stuff. He gives you an exhaustive list of places to look for open loops. It's crazy. Once you start doing this, you realize how many open loops there are in your life, okay? For example, in your wallet or in your purse right this moment, I bet there are at least 10 open loops. There's someone, a business card of someone you're supposed to call, a receipt for something you were supposed to return, something like that. Look in your backpack, in your drawers, in your pockets of all your jackets. On your desktop, on your shelves, cabinets, floor, bulletin boards. You get the idea. Digital, there's even more. Your computer desktop, your documents, downloads, home folders, Dropbox, sticky notes, note-taking and list apps, etc. Mental, it's so long, takes a 5-page appendix. And that will be in the document that I send you after the class. I just didn't want to waste paper. So let's go to any questions on collect. It's pretty straightforward. Remember that you're not thinking about things yet. You're not deciding what's important, what's not, what you should have in there, what's not. You're just dumping. It's like a big dumpster that you're just throwing things in without thinking. Because as soon as you start thinking about it, then it takes too much time. So process. Process is this middle section. So most of it. And we're going to do a few exercises on decision points. So once again, there's 3 rules for processing. They seem simple, but they're not. They're simple, but profound. Let's put it that way. First one is to process the top item first. So implying everything has equal importance, right? You don't pick up the top 2 things and go to the third thing because it's urgent email from your boss. There's no priority, no prioritization. Everything is of equal importance. You start in the beginning. Second, you process one at a time. Okay, so don't think, I'm going to think about this, put it over here, get another one. Well, this one is similar to this other one, process one at a time. Most people do emergency scanning, right? Receive email, 50 emails come in. Okay, let me just scan what's important, what do I need to do here? But as soon as you start doing that, you start selecting whether it's emails or tasks according to what is an emergency, what is important, what is interesting, what is fun, what is easy. Then you start making too many judgments and you start getting bogged down in the system. So at this point, at least, we're still just doing one at a time. And third, never put anything back into inbox, right? It focuses your thinking. If you have to make a decision now about what it is, You have to make the decision. If you put it back in your inbox, you just wasted that thinking you just did, and you're going to have to do the thinking again later. So process is really simple, okay? It's just asking yourself, one at a time, a series of extremely simple questions. Luckily, these questions are much, much, much simpler than this TV show. So the first question, is it actionable? Yes or no? Yes or no question, right? No, let me think about it maybe. No, really, is it actionable? So let's do a quick little exercise. Unpaid medical bill. Who has an opinion? Actionable or not actionable? Actionable because you have to do what action? You have to pay it. Okay, pretty clear on that one. Your child's drawing from school. Oh, cool, Sammy, nice drawing. Is this actionable or no? Actionable? What action are you taking? Okay, that's true. Storing, filing does not count as an action. So besides storing it or saving it, do you have to process it or act upon it in any way? Probably not, right? But you want to keep it. It's extremely valuable, but not actionable. Okay? So that would be no. Phone directory for your sailing club. Valuable? Potentially? Actionable? Probably not. At least for now. It could become actionable. Broken sink disposal. Probably, right? Analyst report on your industry. Here's a harder one. Excuse me. What do you think? Not actionable? Who said that? Okay, but think right now. At this moment, you're holding it in your hand. You said it's not actionable? Why not? Okay, and does anyone think it's actionable or could be actionable? I mean, now. I mean, it could be, right? It depends on you. Only you can say. This is why you have to do this process and a machine can't do it, right? Your child's drawing, if your child is a child prodigy, maybe is actionable. Maybe you need to scan it and put it online and sell it for millions of dollars. I don't know. You get the idea. List of expenses from your team's travel. Actionable, why? If you submit them for reimbursement. But could it also be not actionable? If you don't, right? Okay, so you kind of get the idea. You have to make judgments, but small ones, and one at a time. So if the answer is no, it's not actionable, it goes in one of these three containers. Trash, someday maybe a reference, okay? And we'll talk in the next section what those are. If yes, excuse me, then you come to the next question. What's the next action, right? The next physical action. And this brings us to our next challenge. What is the real next physical action? Okay, this is another one of those things that seems simple, but is not simple. So I work with people sometimes on productivity systems. These are very typical of the kinds of things I see on to-do lists. I mean, this probably looks like a very standard to-do list, right? But here's the problem. So you have something like clean garage. And so I asked the person, what is the next physical action? And they go, well, I just need to do it. And I go, okay, but if you were to do it right now, how would you physically move your body? And they'd go, oh, well, there's a huge old fridge in there. I need to get rid of that fridge. Okay, so we think, next physical action, get rid of the fridge. How would you do that exactly? And he goes, oh, just get rid of it. Oh, wait, there's a guy in my badminton club who said he wanted to take the fridge because he takes apart machines. Okay, so next action is give fridge to Jim. But then you think, how are you going to do that? Well, I don't actually have Jim's phone number. I need to get it from him at the next badminton club meeting. Get phone number from Jim. So you see how this, which is really a project, has a whole history, a whole line of sub tasks that go all the way to the very minimal task, very easy task of getting phone number from Jim at next badminton club meeting. And it's the same thing for all of these, right? You have something like light bulbs. You go, okay, I just need to do it. Why haven't I done it? Oh, I'm so bad at this. You get down on yourself and you go, but wait, you need to take out the current one. You need to see what the voltage is and what kind of bulb it is. You need to, maybe it's a rare bulb, you need to research where you can buy that bulb. You need to see, there's a lot of actions that could result. And here are some other examples. Think of everything you have to do that takes more than one step as a stream, right? So something as simple as change burnt out light bulbs. It's a stream from here to there. The closer the rocks are, the easier it is to cross the stream, right? If there's only one rock and then the other side, you're going to be like, and the water in this very complicated metaphor is like distractions and all the stuff you have to do. If there's a ton of water and there's one rock, you're going to wait, you're going to think about it, you're going to put it off. If there's a bunch of little rocks that are all right next to each other, then it's very easy to take one step at a time. Not only that, but the metaphor kind of breaks down here, but as very often happens in our life, you need to stop and put a hold on this project and work on something else and come back to it weeks later. If you have the next action available for you to do, it's very easy to pick it up again. And there's other benefits that I'll get to later. So let's keep going on this because this is really important. These are typical ways that we start our to-do items, right? They sound very official, very professional, very cool. Set meeting, decide on this, check out this, organize this, follow up with, think about, right? The problem is that most of these things end up being projects, not actions. These are actions, right? So send doodle. You can picture yourself going on doodle.com, filling out the time, sending. You can picture yourself sitting down with a piece of paper and a pen and drafting a list of vacation ideas. You can picture yourself typing in Muir Woods on Google, right? And if you can picture yourself doing it, you're much more likely to do it. Does that make sense? I know the distinction sometimes can be artificial. It can be like, do I really need to do that? Even to things like putting the phone number. It's amazing if you look at this in the car on the way somewhere, or you shouldn't be in the car, but walking somewhere, the difference between having the phone number right there and not is the difference between doing it or not doing it, right? Okay, so I'm moving quickly. Hopefully everything is clear. It's a lot of material to get through, so let's just get to the end and do questions and stuff like that. So next question is kind of like a detour off to the side, to the left. Is this action part of a multi-step project? According to David Allen, any task that takes more than 2 steps is a project. Okay, it's a different conception, right? In our lives, projects are big things like remodel my house, client project, big client project at work, stuff like this. According to David Allen, if you have to take out the light bulb, research the model, and go buy it, that's a project. That's 3 tasks. Okay, so you can imagine you're not going to have 10 or 20 projects. You're going to have many, many more. Maybe, I don't know how many, but a lot. And we'll talk later in a little bit why you need to do that. Second, you have project plans. Project plans are just all the stuff you need to do your projects, right? So the analyst report, right? You might be tempted to get the analyst report and put it in your to-do list, but that's crazy, right? You want to keep your to-do list and project plans as separate as possible because your to-do list or your next actions list is a clear list of actionable items. Project plans are potentially enormous, okay? You don't want to confuse the 2 piles. So now that you've done that, you've written down the project, which by the way is just a line. It's just a few words. What is the project? Nothing complicated. You have 3 options. Excuse me. You can do it, you can delegate it, or you can defer it. So first of all, do it. If it takes less than 2 minutes, just do it, right? Just drop what you're doing. This is the one time where you kind of disturb the process. You drop what you're doing and you do it immediately, okay? Why do you guys think this is? Why is this a special case where you can kind of deviate from the process?
It takes longer to rethink what the next step is the next time it pops up.
Exactly, right? So the investment to put it into your system is using up more time than it would take to just do it immediately, right?
Does that mean do the entire project or do the next step?
The task. Because remember, we decided the next physical action. So at this point, if you're to this stage, you only are looking at specific physical actions, tasks. Next actions and tasks is the same. So next actions, tasks, projects. And what's interesting is you can vary this, right? 2 minutes is kind of an estimate, but there's different cases. Like, for example, if you come back from vacation and you have 350 emails in your inbox, right? And maybe 70% of them only take 2 minutes. Well, okay, but that means you're going to spend 2 or 3 days just answering emails, right? But on Monday, you can't afford to do that. You need to just get through your emails and see what else is on your plate. So in that example, you could bring this down to 10 seconds, right? If an email takes 10 seconds or less, I'll do it. Otherwise, I just task, 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 task. The threshold for investment gets lower. Okay, so this is something you can play with, but it's an interesting number. Second, you can delegate it. So if there's someone else that can do it 80% as well as you, delegate it if you can. Many of us don't have that option, right, for many things, but it's always an option to consider. Sometimes you forget that's an option. And third is you can defer it. So you can say, not now, but I'll put it in my system and I'll do it soon. Now, if you look at it, this is the to-do list, way down here in the bottom right corner of the whole diagram. So you see that the next actions list is protected. It's at the very end of this long, long filter. So hopefully, if there's any way you could have gotten rid of this task, if you could have thrown it in the trash, if you could have put it in reference, if you could delegate it to someone, if you could do it, you would have done all those things. And what's left is this tiny little group of very important, clear things that you need to do. So let's even talk about this more. So let's go through these. Forward meeting report to Susie. What do you think? Do, delegate, or defer? What's that? Just forward an email? Simple, right? Takes 20 seconds, just do it. Update pipeline with new client prospects. Do? Could be delegate. Could it be defer? What if it's based on very long conversations that you had with the client and only you understand your notes, right? Depends. Again, you have to make the decision. Research options for phone conference system. What's that? It's a, yeah, probably delegate if you can, unless that's your job. File finance reports. What do you think? Huh? Do it, okay. Could be any one of them, depending. Refill stapler. Do it, right? Create mock-up of interface menu. Defer, yeah. I like it. You guys are wary of putting things in the defer section. I've trained you well already. Review end-of-year goals. Probably defer. Probably pretty personal, right? Okay, good. Has any of these little exercises seemed in any way difficult? I mean, if you were to answer them for yourself, they're pretty simple, right? None of these questions should really take thought once you get in the habit of asking them. So, go back to exercise 2. We're going to look at the next columns 2, 3, and 4. So for each one task at a time, answer, is it actionable? And in column 2, put yes or no. Or you can put like a check mark if it's actionable. In column 3, say, what is the next physical action? And write it. Remember to use very concrete, very specific action words. And 3, in the 4th column, write do, delegate, or defer. I'll give you about a minute, so work fast. Another 30 seconds.
So you're always just coming up with the next step, you're not like breaking down all the steps for the project?
I'm going to answer that in a little bit. Okay, almost finished. You can keep going and we'll move on. So now we're on phase 3, organize. Now we look at these 7 containers around the edges. Ideally, your goal is to have everything in your life, everything, no matter how small, no matter how big, personal or professional, should fit in one of these 7 buckets. Okay? We don't cover trash because there's actually 8, but trash is just trash. So to answer your question, what is the project list really for, right? Is it really necessary to write the next physical action and then on this separate list write the project that it's a part of? So to answer that, which kind of answers it there, but let's just go like that. Tell me what you think is the potential danger, the pitfall, of focusing only on the next physical action. What's that? Why? There are a lot of them, right? So there's projects that take hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of tiny little steps. So if you only focus on the next one, you lose sight of all the others. Maybe you check off that next action and then you forget the project even exists, right? So the project list is a stake in the ground, right? It's this permanent fixture that you put in the ground so that no matter what happens in terms of tasks or anything else, at some point, which is your weekly review, you're going to come back to the stake and be like, why is a stake here? Oh yeah, it represents a project. Did I do or have I at least thought of the next action for this project? It is basically a task generator, right? You have a bunch of projects. This is your list, and it's a very simple list, just like this. And once a week during your weekly review, you can just scan it and go, have I thought of or done the latest thing? Yes, yes, no. You write it, yes, no, right? That's why a complete project list is so important. Does that answer your question? So here's what I do. This is the Things app for iPhone and the active project section on Things for Mac. So pretty simple. I'm kind of bad because I only put inside Things projects that actually have a lot of tasks. So this is the one area that I don't really follow GTD, so it's kind of bad on me. This ideally should be much longer because it should include every single thing that takes more than one step. Project plans, notes, documentation, research, other resources to support the project. And like I said, it allows you to just accumulate as much as you want. You can have encyclopedias in there if you want, if it makes you happy, without burdening you, overwhelming you, or cluttering your next actions list in any way. This is a solution for hoarders. People who can't throw anything away. If you must have it, you can't throw it away, make project plans. At least it will be separate. So for project plans, I use Evernote. Evernote is the most popular productivity app in the world, without question. It has, I think, 120 million users. It does many things, has many functions. If you're interested in hearing about those, we can go over it in the Q&A. But essentially, every time I define a project, so I go, okay, this is going to take a few steps. I better create a project. Add it to my project list. As soon as I do that, even if I have nothing to put in this folder, I create a project folder. Okay? So that way, you can start a process. You can start kind of like a watch on it, right? So for example, we started, I had to change the title. This is a client project for, let's just say a client, that's on trends in driving, so technological trends in driving. We're doing a study. So I created this folder, and in the month since we started the conversation with the client, I've just been sticking things in there. Every time I see something on TechCrunch, on any website, on my RSS feed, on Twitter, I just stick it in there. And the cool thing is after a month, actually this took more like 6 months, but by the time I went to actually work on the project, I have almost 700 items in there. It's like I did research in my sleep, is what it feels like. And you can do that with anything, right? Create a folder for, another good one is Wikipedia. If there's something you want to write a Wikipedia article on, just create a folder. And for a few months, stick things in there. By the time you go to actually write the Wikipedia article, all your sources will be there. So it's just an example. Here is Evernote, which syncs via the cloud, by the way. So does Things. On my computer, so I have personal projects, personal areas of responsibility. We'll talk about the difference. Professional projects and professional areas of responsibility. Okay, and these drop down. So when you go home, you can, double-click the professional ones, and they disappear, and you can look only at personal ones. So very simple, nothing fancy here. So what's the difference? This is actually a pretty subtle difference. It's really important, and it took me a long time to understand. Projects versus areas of responsibility. Okay, so tell me something. This is a very philosophical question. Can everything in your life be reduced to a project? Is there anything in your life that is not a project? Anyone willing to take a risk? Yes or no?
Well, there's continuous things.
Okay.
I want to be a better father. That's ongoing, that's forever.
You stole my example. Right. Is being a father a project? What's the objective of being a father? What's the goal? To be a good father, right? So, not everything is a project. There's some things that are areas of responsibility. And the definition, the difference is quite simple. Projects have goals. So when this happens, this project will be finished, and I can check it off. Areas of responsibility have standards, right? So if it's health, to run this many miles every week, to eat this many vegetables, to do this many push-ups. If it's, to be a good father, to spend this many hours or days with my child, to go to this many baseball games, I don't know, however you want to define it. Also, projects are time limited. There's an end, right? So you can do things like calculate ROI. How much am I investing in this project? How much am I receiving from it? What's the return on investment for this project? Areas of responsibility are indefinite in duration. So it doesn't necessarily mean they never end. For example, you could have an area of responsibility girlfriend, right? The role of your girlfriend in your life, or boyfriend, is a standard to be maintained, right? And it's indefinite. It's not going to last forever necessarily, but you're not sure when it will end, hopefully. So let's do some examples. Installing new windows at home. Who thinks it's a project? Yeah? Who thinks it's an area of responsibility? Okay, you're right. Because once they're installed, it's finished, right? Managing your project team. Who thinks project? No, wow, you guys think as a group. Area of responsibility? Why is it an area of responsibility? Madi? It's a continuing aspect of your life, yeah. Good. Being a father, we know. Delivering on an order with a customer, area of responsibility? No, I couldn't trick you. Project. Managing a major client account. Okay, and who thinks? Okay, it's kind of overlapping. It's a bit unclear. I'd say it depends, like you said, on your goals, right? Can you say when these things are finished, I will no longer be no longer managing this account? I don't know. It depends how you want to define it. Manage personal finances. Ongoing personal area of responsibility, and hire a new developer. Project. Good. You guys got it. So one little note also how this is organized. Every task falls under one area of responsibility. Otherwise, why are you doing it? Right? But not every task falls under a project. Okay? So these would be complicated projects that have multiple steps. These would be simple things like, take out the garbage or, I don't know. Do something very simple. Every project is also inside an area of responsibility. So it's kind of this hierarchy. And this may seem like really, like, why does this matter? It matters when you set up, at least when you use things, because you can put tags on an area of responsibility. So when you put a project inside an area of responsibility, it automatically gets assigned those tags, and all the tasks in there also get assigned the tags. So really, this is only important if you use tags, which I recommend. So exercise 3 in your packets. So look at your list of next actions from exercise 2. And for each one, there's 5, there should be 5, write in exercise 3 in the first column which projects those belong to, if applicable. Remember, it doesn't have to be part of a project. And in the second column, which areas of responsibility they belong to. Does that make sense? So basically, exercise 3 is a continuation of exercise 2. There just wasn't enough room. So each line in exercise 2 should correspond to a line in exercise 3. That made sense, right? Anyone still unsure? And I'll turn back to this slide to remind you of the difference. It's sometimes a little subtle what the difference is. Does anyone have one they're stuck on that they'd like to ask about? So remember, you should have 5 areas of responsibility. Each task must have an area of responsibility, remember? But not necessarily 5 projects. You could have from 0 to 5 projects, depending on if the tasks are part of a bigger project. Okay. I'm going to go ahead and move on. Actually, we'll wait just another 30 seconds. Okay, so as you can see, we're kind of following the boxes around counterclockwise around the perimeter of the diagram. So we did project list, project plans, now we're on waiting for. Waiting for is simply things that other people need to do for you to do them, right? So waiting for Jim to send me a report, right? You don't want these things on your next actions list. How depressing is that to have a list of things that you should do but you can't do because you're waiting on someone, right? Keep that separate. You can also do this with tags. If you just tag those tasks waiting for, then you can just filter them out. Your calendar. David Allen is extremely strict about this. Your calendar should absolutely only contain things that must happen at that time, okay? So people like to do daily to-do lists. David Allen is extremely against those, right? For 2 reasons. One is most of the time you're going to not do everything on your daily to-do list, and that just means you get to finish your day with the wonderful task of getting all the things you didn't do and moving them to the next day, and then doing the same thing the day after that and after that. It's a very depressing way to end your day. 2, because if you have items on your calendar that don't have to happen on that day at that time, you dilute the emphasis on the things that actually do, right? If you have, like, some people like to block out time their whole day, like, I should be doing this, I should be doing this, I should be doing this. you can lose sight of that one meeting where someone will physically be in your office because you had scheduled too many things, right? He talks about the calendar as a hard landscape, right? If you look at a horizon, it's a hard landscape of things that cannot be changed easily, and the tasks that you put on top of it is soft. It kind of fills in the spaces. Okay? There's my calendar, nothing special. I do not understand the explosion of calendar apps in the app stores. I haven't found any magic features. Maybe you guys can enlighten me, but pretty straightforward. And now we finally get to our next actions list. Yeah?
I was wondering why you recommended Busy.
Oh yeah, okay, let me say. I usually try to stick to the Apple standard program if I can, just because it's easier. And I really liked iCal. I just like that it's simple. BusyCal is essentially iCal without all the errors and problems that iCal creates. Like, I don't know what it is. I don't know why Apple can't figure this out, but every time you try to subscribe to a calendar, share an item, it gives an error. BusyCal, you can't even tell the difference in terms of looks. It just works. And it has just features like iCal. If you try to rename these calendars, sometimes it won't let you, but BusyCal is better. I don't know.
Does it sync well with Google Apps?
Syncs extremely well with Google, yeah. I find myself, to be honest, I'm a total Apple fanboy, but over time I find myself, as I think many people, moving away from Apple stuff to Google stuff. Honestly, it's web-based, it syncs, it's an interesting trend that's going on. We'll see what happens with it. So finally, after all this thinking, we get to your to-do list, or as we call it, your next actions list. So these are things that you could do at any moment, right? I have a picture of a finish line, because that's how it should feel. When you finally look at your next actions list, you should be like, whoa, here's this list of really important, clearly actionable items. I could do any one of these. I could do a whole bunch of them right in a row, right? It should empower you. That's why we put all this effort into removing all the stuff that doesn't empower you. And you can organize it by context, so even despite the filtering, you're still likely to have many, many, many tasks on this list, which is where filtering comes in. And we'll talk about how to filter that and how to prioritize. Here's where prioritization comes in the next section. So here's my next actions list and things. Here's the projects. Here's the tasks. And I only have a few. This was, I'm in the middle of redoing a tagging system, so it doesn't have any tags, but now it has tags here, which is the different ways that you filter it. So let's do this. It's simple, but it's good to just practice it. Meeting with a major content licensee if you're a media company. Does this go on your calendar or your next actions list? What do you think? Calendar? Anyone think differently? If you have the time for it? Okay. Interesting. I think it could be either. It depends, right? If there's a certain type of preparation that must happen right before, but think about the opposite side. What if it's a type of preparation that's best done well before, right? Oh, you're right. Sorry, I got confused. Okay, so meeting, yes, should go on calendar. Prepare for meeting, it depends, right? Maybe it's better that you see that several days before and you do the preparation then instead of half an hour before your meeting. Keeping you guys sharp. Send late project proposal to boss. What do you think? Next actions, right? Oops. Defrost meat for fancy dinner tomorrow night. Next actions? Does it need to happen at a certain time? Kind of does, right? It's not like do it sometime before dinner. It needs to happen not after a certain point and not before a certain point. So it's on your calendar, which means it's on your phone, and your phone will beep 10 minutes before if you have the setting. Pick up dry cleaning. Next actions, right? Whenever it's convenient. Dispute credit card charge.
For that, I actually put it on my calendar because it might take a while with the phone.
Mm-hmm.
Block time to do it.
Ah, interesting.
There's also a Zen mind that you need. So I just like to sit down and put on speakerphone. So I'm like.
It's a good point. It's a good point. Although there's a different way to do that, which will with tags, like a phone tag. But yeah, outline plan for home renovation. Next actions. What if you need your wife there to do it? You could put it on your calendar, right? If there's no other time you can do it, but between 9 and 10, when both your wife and you are home, or your husband are home, and that's the only time. So yeah. Yeah. So you have. So the question was, if you have a project that has 5 or 10 steps, what do you do? So the GTD answer, the correct answer, in the methodology would be, of the 10 steps that you have, the first one goes on your next actions list, right? An entry for the project goes on your project list, so you'll remember to look back at these items and activate the tasks as you need them, and you can tag it. You can use tags. So what GTD would say not to do is to put all 10 on your list, right? Because then, as you're going down your list, you go can't do, can't do, can't do, can't do, can't do, can't do. It takes you time and effort just to find the item you can do. So keep those tasks, keep them in mind, but keep them in things. You have a next actions and a today section. Most productivity task management apps have this. There's like next actions, and then you activate some just for that day. So I would just get the next one, the one you can do next, and put it on your today list. Does that make sense? Uh-huh. That's true. If they're very, very quick, you could put a few on your today list. Or you could just remember, once you check off one task, to just add the next task. It depends on you. Or when we look at your reviews, because you can do a daily, weekly, and monthly review. If you feel like you need to put reviewing project list on your daily checklist, you could go back to your project list once a day and remind yourself of those actions. It depends a lot on the size of the tasks, the size of the project. But the main point is that, according to GTD, you shouldn't put this massive number of tasks onto your today list. Or even really your next actions list, because they're not really next actions, right? You have to do one in order to do the next.
Because the OmniFocus has a dependency.
Yes.
And it releases the ones after it into the next action list once you get that.
Right. Some programs have subtasks. Asana has the same. Most of them have the same. It's actually probably the biggest complaint about things. It's like they're so obsessed with simplicity, they don't even want to implement subtasks. I kind of wish they would. I see the use. On the other hand, I appreciate the simplicity. So the comment was about, you said OmniFocus, right? OmniFocus is kind of like the 800-pound gorilla of the productivity world. It's like, if you are like a hardcore GTD maniac, you use OmniFocus because it has so many features. You can do anything you want with it.
What's your critique of Asana? I've heard a lot of it.
My main critique of Asana is that, someone sat down and did an experiment. It takes 16 seconds if you're using the browser. 16 seconds to enter a task into Asana. Just way too long. It should take 5 or less. If it takes more than 5 seconds to enter a task, you're not going to keep up with it. Wunderlist is one I like. And it's funny because Wunderlist and Things are both made by German companies, which kind of makes sense, right? It's like efficiency. I like Wunderlist. My critique is the pricing system. And let's hold off on which apps are better than other ones, because I have a section on that. Anything else? I'm kind of rushing to get through all the stuff so that we can just kind of talk. Half an hour, a little less than half an hour left. So reference material, like we said, not actionable, but holds intrinsic value. So you want to keep it, but you don't want it on your next actions list. For me, it's also Evernote. So these are not projects. I have things like finances, apartment. In apartment, if I see a painting or some poster that I want to get, I can just stick it in there. Cooking, recipes that I'd like to cook, they're just reference. Not really something I want to do right away. I just want to have them. I also have a Filebox is not the name of a fancy new app. It's just a Filebox. Then we get to Someday Maybe, which is really important actually. Someday Maybe is where you put dreams. You can have things here, you can have sublists like wines I would like to try, music I would like to listen to, places I would like to visit on vacation, movies I would like to see, restaurants I would like to visit, right? So often we think, oh, those aren't important productivity things. Those belong somewhere else, but then we never get to it. There's something about our subconscious minds. If we have a list of these kind of things we would love to do eventually, your subconscious mind is activated and seeks opportunities and possibilities to do those things. So someday maybe. You can also, once in a while, say in your monthly review, look at your someday maybe list and see if there's any projects that you would like to activate and move them from your someday maybe to your project list, right? It's kind of like it's a holding pen for potential projects. So Things has a special place for this. You can see that Things follows GTD pretty closely. There's next, scheduled, someday, project list. Any questions on organize? I know a lot of it has to do with apps, and we'll come back to that. So now we're down here at the bottom. Oh. So review is one area that's very customized. It really depends on you, and we're going to do an exercise on this. But the rule of thumb is to review your containers as often or as not often as you need to in order to feel comfortable about your commitments. Okay? So if you don't want to do a weekly review, you feel that's too much, you want to do an every 2-week review, and you feel okay with that, you feel like you're not forgetting anything, that's fine. If you want to do daily or twice daily or 3 times daily or once every 2 days or 3 days, it's fine. But what you have to be aware of is how you feel about it. Because your mind, remember, it's too smart. It will keep bugging you if it knows there's something that you're not paying attention to. So this is a huge challenge. David Allen calls the weekly review the master key to GTD. Like the one thing that if you can do it, it will unlock the whole system. So don't skimp on it. So kind of what's the philosophy behind it? The weekly review prevents your mind from taking back the job of remembering, right? Because that's what tends to happen. As soon as this to-do list over here, you feel like it might not be complete, I might be missing something, then your mind takes it back. And it goes, no, I don't trust you, I'm taking it back, I'm going to start worrying about it again. But if you know, oh, during my weekly review, I'm going to review every single one of these categories, you can just go, I'm not going to take it back. It also gives you an elevated perspective, so you need a time where you stop working, you stop like the midst of battle, and you take a step back and you really think about what you want to be doing. And David Allen really recommends doing this not at work, and I would agree. Don't do it on Monday morning or any time during work, just because when you're in the thick of things, you can't think the same way. And there's actually an ongoing battle in the GTD world about when you should do your weekly review. There's schools of thought. Some people are like, no, in the morning for sure. You have to set the tone of your day. Other people are like, no, end of day because you just had all these things happen to you and you need to think about what happened that day. Some people are like, oh, weekends because you're relaxed. Some people are like, no, weekends are for relaxing. You need to. It's all these crazy schools of thought which you don't need to know about. But I would try different days. So just one note is, think about when you go on vacation, right? You clarify everything. It's kind of like the one time everyone does a weekly review. You go through all your projects, all your tasks, all your responsibilities, and think how you feel, when you know you're going to be gone for the next 3 weeks, it's Friday, and you're like, I'm going to leave all that behind. Everything is clarified on pause. That feeling you have once a year or twice a year is the feeling we're looking for every single week. So use that as your standard. So what do? What is this magical key, this magical treasure with the weekly review? You basically do 4 things. You gather and process all your stuff. So usually, no matter how disciplined you are, you're going to find there's things left over from the week, so you can do those. So just go through the workflow diagram, update your containers, review your system. So is the system itself working? Is there any part that I don't feel good about? And 4, get clean, clear, current, and complete. More specifically, there's many, many different things that you can do in your weekly review. You can see some of them there. You don't have to do all of these. In fact, I would really not recommend putting a list like this for your weekly review because you'll take one look at it and be overwhelmed. So here's my weekly review. There's only 5 things. I look at past calendar items. I'm always amazed if I just look 2 weeks in the past how many open loops there are, how many meetings I didn't follow up on, how many meeting notes I forgot to type up and send to the team. There's always things lurking in the past. I look at the future 4 weeks. There's things I need to prepare for. Empty my mind. There's always open loops lurking up there. Review my mint budgets, kind of random financial stuff. And be creative and courageous. So just think, whoa, if I was total 100% creative, 100% courageous, if there was no way I could fail, what would I put on my list this week? So what you can do is try different weekly reviews. Okay, start with a bigger list and do it for a while, and then start cutting off items that you don't really need to look at every single week. Okay, the reason that my weekly review is so small is because if it's larger, I just don't do it. And I can do this because my daily checklist is longer and because I'm disciplined with it. So this is my daily checklist. I do this every day, twice a day, once first thing in the morning, once right after lunch. I look at my calendar, right? Because that's your hard landscape. If there's a meeting in 30 minutes, I kind of have to drop everything. I look at my physical desktop and my notepad because I'm OCD and I can't work on my computer if there's random stuff all over me. I look at my computer desktop. I'm so OCD, if my computer desktop is full of files, it's really distracting for me. Look at my downloads folder. I'm telling you, it's crazy. I have to clear everything. I look at my email inbox, process or do every single email. Many of those emails get turned into tasks, which go into my things inbox. So next, I look at my things inbox, process those, and the final step is next actions. So I kind of see it as like a launching pad. Like you're starting with your hard landscape, going, and hopefully, at the end, I have a list of next actions and I can start working. And here's my monthly review, pretty simple. I look at my project list to see if there's any finished projects, if there's any projects I want to start. I review my areas of responsibility, I review my goals, and I review Sunday maybe for any new projects. So I'm just showing you these as examples, but these are very, very personal. They depend on what you want out of life, how your mind works, what your schedule looks like, if you have a family, how big your family is, many, many different factors. So I always get this question, okay, you've given me all of these wonderful review things I should do. I have a job and a family. I don't have hours and hours and hours every week to be reviewing, as fun as that would be. Not. I'm a huge fan of time tracking. I'm not going to talk about it in this class, but it's amazing how we account for every single cent in our lives and our companies. Right? No dollar goes unnoticed, and yet we don't do the same for time. We don't budget time, we don't track time, we don't account for time. There's some really great apps out there that will allow you to do this very, very easily. So I've been doing it. I did it from August, to this past May. So about 9 months of time tracking. Every single project I worked on. These are the different projects. Because I wanted to know this. I wanted to know how much time am I spending on my GTD system. And it comes out to about 2%. Okay, so not insignificant, right? 2 minutes out of every 100 minutes. This comes out to 10 minutes a day. So you see, it's not unreasonable. But even then, even if you can see how much time you're spending, you have to know what your gain is, right? How much are you investing? How much are you gaining? So this depends on your productivity increase. If you receive a 10% increase in your productivity from your system, you can spend up to 4 hours a week or 48 minutes a day on your system. Okay? Anything less than this is time gained. As you increase your productivity more and more and more, you can afford to spend more time. Okay? Now, this is easy to track. Right? Mine was 10 minutes a day, so well below this. How do you track this? Right?
The different units.
Oh, sorry about that. If it doesn't say the unit, it's hours.
Okay.
If it's not hours, it says minutes. It's kind of confusing. So how do you track this? How do you track your productivity? Right? It's like, how do you get the data? Everything's data-driven now. How do you get the data? You can do this if you are using your next physical action. Right? When you check off your items, if you have some that are like do major client project and some that are like refill my stapler, those units, those tasks are not equal, right? You can't compare those on an equal basis. But if you've broken down everything into the next physical task, next physical actions are pretty equal, right? They're pretty uniform. So one project may have 200 tasks, another one may have 5, but you can at least compare the tasks directly. So most productivity apps let you see this. They let you see how many tasks did you complete on a certain day in a certain week. And it's not perfect, definitely, because not all tasks really are the same, but you can see more or less how many physical actions you completed in a given day or a given week, and you can calculate this. The export function on things is kind of crude, and I'm still working on doing it, so I can't show you my personal graph, but I'm working on it. Okay, so David Allen talks about this, how to think about your life in terms of the different elevations. So it's like a plane, runway, 10K, 20K, 30K, 40K, 50K feet. And it's really important to look at your life at every elevation. So you have your next actions, that's like the runway. At 10,000 feet, you're looking at projects. At 20, areas of responsibility, 1 to 2 year goals, 3 to 5 year goals, and life goals. And these correspond to the reviews. So your daily checklist, you're on the runway. During your weekly review, you're looking from 10K and 20K feet. During your monthly review, you're looking at 30K and 40K feet. And if you have some kind of yearly review, I don't know, a New Year's resolutions type thing that you do, it's kind of outside the scope of this class, but you can do that every year. And of course, this is customizable. You can do whatever combination you want. If you want to think about your life goals every week, that's great. Probably benefit from it. Okay, so look at exercise 4. These on the screen are some of the things you can do just some, not all, of the things you can do during your reviews. What I'd like you to do is just go through the process of trying to schedule these. Okay? So I believe you have 3 columns. Daily, weekly, and monthly. Go through each item. So process, email, backlog. How often would you like to do that? I mean, ideally. Do you want to do it every day? Maybe you don't. Maybe it's a once a week thing. Review past calendar items. Maybe you feel like I don't need to review my calendar every day. I'll do that every week. Review project lists. Maybe you already have too many projects and you only want to review project list every month. Really think about your priorities, your values, like what is important to you, and how often you feel personally you would need to review each of these things. So write them either in daily, weekly, or monthly. And again, this is not a complete list by any means. There's items you could make up that are unique to you, of course. It's just to kind of go through the motions.
Emails, sometimes I just let stuff sit. Like if it's some newsletter I don't want to read, they just slide down and they go, you literally have nothing in your inbox, right?
That's a philosophy called Inbox Zero. It's kind of like the holy grail of like the tech world. Ideally, you would unsubscribe from the ones you really don't want. Yeah, that's true. We can talk about that during the Q&A. I only have 10 minutes left, so I want to try to rush through. So you can finish this later. I'm going to send you these slides, but you kind of get the idea, right? Kind of the bottom line for review is design your schedule. So design is everywhere, right, these days. Everything is being designed. Even gas masks are being designed. Yet we don't apply the same principles, design thinking, user experience design, to our schedule. Our schedule is still this mysterious amorphous thing that just happens to us every day. Design your schedule. What are you going to do every day? What are you going to do twice a day? What are you going to do every week? And finally, do. Excuse me. So now we are right here. So David Allen talks about the 4 criteria model for choosing actions. So you've done the whole system, you've done the processing, the organizing, the reviewing. Now you're sitting at your desk. How do I choose what to do? It's a big, big question, right? How do I know which of these actions to do? So according to David, there are 4 criteria that you should apply in order. right? So the first one is context. What can you do, right? If you can't do it, there's no point in even considering it, okay? So this could be things like, I need to be at my computer, I need to be at my desk, I need to be at my phone, I need to be at the client's office, I need to be at the store, I need to be at the mechanic, I need to be on the road, who knows? And those can all be tags. If you need something to do something, put the tag on it, and then you can search by those tags. Time. What do you have time for, right? If a meeting is starting in 10 minutes, don't consider the huge projects, the huge tasks. Just consider small things. That can also be a tag. It's also a good habit to get into to start estimating how long things will take. Because if you're tracking your time, you can compare what you estimated and what it actually took and start getting better at estimating how long things take, which is a really, really valuable skill that people don't have, right? How often do we say, or someone says, that'll take 10 minutes, takes an hour. I'll take an hour, takes a day. Take a day, takes a week, right? People are just really off. 3, energy. What are you up to doing? This is something that we don't think about sometimes, right? One of the goals of GTD is to help you be productive even when you're not being productive, right? So sometimes you sit at your desk, it's like 6 o'clock, you're just like, I cannot think. My brain is fried, right? If you have a tag, or if you can look at your list and go, wow, there's things I can do. Water my plants, refill my stapler, reorganize my desk, that are kind of don't take any mental energy, but you're still getting things done. If you have a system like this, you'll do those things. If you have to reorganize your system just to be able to find those things, you're never going to do them. You're going to sit at your desk, or you're going to struggle trying to do something really complex that you don't have the energy for. And 4, priority. It's interesting that priority comes, that's the last criteria in the last box of the last stage, right? That's because David Allen doesn't believe in priority. For a few reasons. One is priority changes second to second, right? If something is priority 10, but you're driving home from work and you see the store, it suddenly goes to priority 1 because you can take care of it really easily, right? Priority changes too frequently. If you have priority as tags, it means you have to go through all your actions and rethink the priority of each one. It's kind of crazy. But it can still be important. So to finish, what are the essential GTD skills, right? Taking a step back from like the process, the steps, the schedules, like what are the skills that I need to develop to do this? And they're the same skills that Bruce Lee has and that Jackie Chan doesn't have. So the first one is to be lazy, okay? Because there's a very, very fine line between being lazy and being efficient, okay? You can think of some examples. Who's more lazy? The person who has an Excel spreadsheet and goes manually adding with a calculator each line of figures, or the person who makes a formula and then does the little thing where you copy the formula down the whole thing? Who's more lazy and who's more efficient, right? It's kind of the same thing. Look for ways to be aware of where you're spending time, what is difficult, and find an easier way, right? Sometimes people are masochistic in the way that they want to do things the hard way. So it might seem like when you're talking about the review, like, okay, I have to do this checklist every day, I have to do the review every week. It's really not about self-discipline. Self-discipline is overrated when it comes to this stuff. Much more important than self-discipline is self-awareness. So it's much more important that you can just take a second and realize, I mean, this is good life advice besides GTD, right? Just feel what you're feeling, what is causing you anxiety, which parts of the system do you feel an aversion to, which parts of the system is it painful to deal with, be aware of that pain and fix it. Instead of just kind of thinking, oh, it does, the more painful, the better. I just need to force it, because that won't be sustained. You won't stay with it. It's like the saying, the best system is the one you stick with, right? The best system is not the best system. It's the one that you do. Same with exercise, same with finances, investing, many things. And it's the same with productivity. And third, don't run with the crowd. There's so many wisdom things that everyone accepts, that are just false. One is that you need to check your email 10 times a day. You know? There's an expectation that you need to answer. That's the definition of a good worker. Oh, this person is on top of it. They answered my email right away. When I see people that respond immediately to my emails all the time, I think less of them. I think what is so important about emails that you are on your email all day long. Okay? Answer email twice a day. This is what I do. And people get on my case sometimes. It's fine. They respect me in other ways. I answer my email twice a day only, but I answer every single email or remove it from my inbox. If you're doing 5 to 10 times a day checking email, I don't know, maybe there's a way you can make it work, but I think it's a distraction. So find your own way, question the conventional wisdom, because the conventional status quo is not productive, I think. I think many people are very dysfunctional, which gives you motivation to question it. I'm not going to go through, if you want to during the Q&A we can, but there's so many apps. I saw recently there was an article where it was a comprehensive review of 167 task management apps. Not productivity apps, only task management. So there's one category, 167. And there's new ones coming out all the time. I don't know what it is with productivity apps and the App Store. There's like a new one, a new cool one that's going to completely change the way you work every single week, right? So don't get caught up in kind of the trends, I think. Instead of talking about specific apps, which you can if you'd like later, I think it's important to develop a set of criteria for apps, okay? I think many times you can, I know I do this, download apps, buy apps, and try them, and think that I used to categorize it as productivity in my productivity section because I was trying out a new app, but then I realized this isn't productivity, this is fun, this is diversion, right? So many times we think that we're trying some new thing to make us more productive, but it's not. So this is the filter criteria that I would recommend. This is the one I use. So first one, is the app dead simple? Like I said, I'm ruthless. If there's any feature I don't intuitively understand, if there's anything that requires any sort of complexity, I drop it. I don't care how cool it is, how many features it has. I look for a 10 times ROI. I have a limited number of tools I can use, right? Even if a tool gives me 2 times ROI, I need some real leverage to make it worth my time to use it. What's that? A return on investment. So if it takes me 1 minute to use it, I need to gain 10 minutes. If it takes 1 hour, I need to gain 10 hours. It needs to be free, which is almost all the apps that I recommend anyway, or a one-time purchase. I don't know what it is. I hate subscriptions. I hate seeing that on my bank statement every month. Minus $5, minus $3, whatever it is for this app. I feel like I'd rather just pay it all up front. Maybe you're different. That's just me. Popular, right? So this is going against what I said in the previous slide. But I only really use tools that are very popular because I know they'll be supported. I know they'll be around. I know they have a developer community. I know they have at least a sizable team supporting it. Sexy. If I'm going to look at it every day and much of my time, I want it to look good, be well designed. Full featured, it's kind of down there. Not that important. And multi-platform, right? So web, desktop, mobile, stuff like that. So it's 8 o'clock. I'm just going to take a few minutes to go into what do you do now? What are the next steps? And here's what I would say. These 5 things. First is set up your tools. Even if you're not sure what tool you want to use, even if you don't know whether it is the best one, just start. Because as soon as you start learning. At the bare minimum, you need a task management app, which takes care of most of the workflow diagram. You need a calendar app, which takes care of the bottom calendar square. You need a reference app of some type, which takes care of reference on the right. And a list making app, just because there's a lot of different lists involved, like project list and other lists. David Allen is just a total list nerd. And so am I. And optional, there's a million other productivity apps. So hopefully this is more, it really needs to be more than a one-time process, right? You're not going to just set up your system and go for a long time just with the thing you have. So I kind of advise getting some streams where you're getting information about GTD on a somewhat regular basis. So sign up to David Allen's newsletter. Every week you'll get a few very short but thought-provoking articles from David Allen himself. Follow people on GTD, on Twitter that are into GTD. And subscribe to RSS feeds from different sites. Lifehacker, 43 folders, Unclutter, there's a whole list of them. I'm going to send you some curated resources in an email after the class that has a much longer list. Set aside, so this is the one kind of big upfront investment you need to make. I would recommend setting aside a block of time. So this is when David Allen does it. He charges like $10,000 and spends the whole day with you. It's usually like CEOs and stuff, but you don't need someone to do it with you. Set aside a time, look through that appendix that I showed you, and just drink like 3 coffees and just go crazy. You know, get like a physical bucket where you can do physical collection, and a piece of paper or your computer where you can do digital collection. Go through every single physical, digital, and mental area of your life and write down open loops. It's really refreshing. It's like purging. Make sure you won't be interrupted. Make sure you get everything. And don't think about stuff, just collect it. Schedule your reviews. At first, they're going to be painful, awkward, too long, too boring, but you'll refine them. You'll take out some items, add other items, and they will get to the point where if you don't do your review, you'll feel like you didn't like brush your teeth or something. And be forgiving. People tend to be really hard on themselves. Oh, I can't do GTD. It's too hard. I can't do my weekly review. Who cares? You know, I skip it sometimes. I'll do it every 2 weeks. I skip my monthly review. You know, if it's the first of the month and I'm on vacation, I'm not going to be like, sorry guys, no, I can't go skiing today or whatever. I need to do my review. You know, it can wait however long. So be forgiving of yourself. Really share your learnings. This is a really important one. You shouldn't be alone in this. It's really good if you can find a partner through a meetup or online or a friend that wants to get into GTD. And experiment. This is really important, right? You don't know. You can't just think up the perfect system. You have to go along based on how you feel and how you think, and it needs to evolve. And just in case you start to become a super GTD nerd, there's some kind of complementary productivity systems that fit very well with GTD. In box 0, time tracking, like I said, the Pomodoro technique, the Eisenhower matrix, which is good if you just like are in emergency mode and you need a very simple 4 container like mini system just for this project, just for right now. And I put in parentheses some apps that I like that do these things. Achievement list, which is kind of a new movement. The idea is instead of checking things off on a list that never gets done every day, you write everything you did do that day. So at the end of the day, you have an achievement list instead of an unfinished to-do list. There's different strategies. And structured procrastination, which I'm sure you're very curious about. You can see it in the resources. So a few minutes over. Questions? Yes?
How do you lead the deadline? I have a project,
Uh-huh.
100 tasks, and I have a specific delivery date.
So the question was, how do you deal with deadlines? Is it a deadline for the whole project or kind of milestones?
It's a deadline. At the end, I have to deliver everything, the full project, on specific date. Like you pay your tax on specific date. And you have a lot of different tasks to do.
Uh-huh.
We cannot really put that on the calendar.
Uh-huh. Good point. So there's a whole section in David's book, which is about project management, which I don't have time to cover. What I would do, and what GTD would recommend, is to have a separate system for project management. So to have something like Omniplan, right, where you have all your tasks, you have dependencies, so one thing ends, another thing starts, and you can track the whole project in one place and not have pieces of the project all throughout your system. So you track the project, say in Omniplan, and then you can get your tasks and put them into your productivity system, right? Because both are important. It's valuable to have the whole project on one page so you can see the whole thing with all the milestones. But it's also valuable if you're at the at the computer store, and you can quickly look on your phone, filter by urgency, by time, by place. Let's say the place tag says on the road or around town, and it comes up with the task, buy computer cable for printer, which relates to this project. That's also valuable, right? So there's some integration that you can do between project management and task management. Really, everything we talked about today is really about you. It's like your personal, individual task management. It's not really about like a project or about a team. And I would of course recommend buying the book and looking more into that section. Yeah?
Does things talk to Evernote?
No. The only thing that Things integrates with is mail. So if you have to do inbox zero, kind of like what I was saying before, you have to get things extremely efficiently out of your inbox, right? If you're looking at an email and you're like, it would take me a minute to think of what the task is, to write it, to open up my productivity app, you're just not going to do that. You're going to leave it in your inbox, and it's going to kind of stagnate there. So it needs to take a few seconds. So in Things, if you have the message selected, you can select a line of text in the email. This is an Apple Mail. Do a certain key combination, Control Option Spacebar, and it copies that text that you highlighted, puts it in a to-do, a little window pops up, and it puts a link to the email right there automatically. So then you hit enter, it's in your productivity, in your task management app and Things. So when you're back there looking at it, you have the task, and if you need to see the email to remember it, you just click the link and it opens up your email program. And actually, Asana just released a similar thing for Gmail. If you have Asana and Gmail open in two different tabs, because a lot of people use those two together, you can just, with a key combination, get something out of an email in Gmail, and in a different tab, put it into Asana. So there's different integrations, but to answer your question, no, it doesn't integrate with Evernote or Calendar. Yeah.
I think you said to save the email question I had. The way I do email is there's some way better.
Oh yeah, okay.
Down to by any stretch zero.
Right. Okay. So Inbox Zero is kind of its whole own thing. There's conferences. In fact, there's a conference coming up called Inbox Love, and essentially it's a whole conference on this, right? There's different approaches, like a couple things. I told you the thing about one at a time, like starting at the first one and doing one at a time. And some people say that's fine because you don't have to think about it too much. But what about batch processing? Right? Like, what if I want to go through and do all the emails that take 2 minutes or less? Then I want to start at the beginning and go through all the newsletters. Then I want to go through and do all the important emails. And I think that has some value because of batch processing, right? If you're doing 10 newsletters in a row, you can just you get your mind in a certain state and you can just churn through those. You know, you just go into scanning mode, bam, 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 and it's like that with anything. The danger is you tell yourself you're gaining this efficiency with batch processing, but then you lose this is one area where you need strong self-discipline, right? Because you're like, okay, I'm going to go through and do the easy emails, but then you see, oh, that's an email from my friend. Oh, I better read that. Oh, cool, she has a new baby. And you're like, a few more, oh my gosh, this is a really important news flash from, it's hard to maintain discipline, but batch processing can be good.
And then you're deleting everything.
Yeah, so the way I do batch processing in those three categories. So quick emails, I call it watch, and I categorize it in my time tracking, and then important emails. And when I finish, every email has to be either deleted in my task management app or in my reference app. And interruptions happen, right? If you need an hour in the morning to do it and someone walks up to your desk in the first 10 minutes, that's part of the system, is that you have a system so you can deal with interruptions, right? Deal with interruptions, take the phone call, and when it's over, instead of coming back to your desk like, oh my God, what was I doing? And taking a long time to get back into the state of mind. No, here's my schedule, here's my daily checklist. I'm at this point, I'll just resume. And do that as many times as you need to, regardless of interruptions. If you have a schedule, you can deal with interruptions.
So how do you, a lot of times I have days where, like, I have 8 a.m. to like 6 p.m. back-to-back 30-minute slots.
Mm-hmm.
You like be late for meetings to go to the restroom.
Uh-huh.
So usually, how do you get GTD when you sometimes have to do kind of meetings, or you just don't take some, just keep your system?
No, I don't think you need to say no to things. I mean, I think if you to maintain your system, you have to like cancel appointments and not talk to people, that's kind of defeating the purpose. I think a big part of that is collection, right? So when you collect, don't think that you have to really think about it. You just dump it in there. So when I'm in a meeting, I have my computer open. As soon as someone says something it's like a reaction. I have to act on that. People who work with me know this. It's kind of an interruption, I guess, but I just reach over, key combination, thing comes up, a few words, bam. It's not well written, it's not well structured, I haven't put any thought into it. But at the end of the day, at 6 p.m., I go there and I have a list of all the things that I need to respond to, and I can process them.
Ultimately, to build that, like, I think I sometimes, for some calls, I like to use paper. For some calls, I like to use a computer. And then I get to my day, and I have not assembled everything. Some things on Evernote, some things in Google Docs,
Yeah.
some things on Moleskin, some things on, and some things on my inbox.
Uh-huh.
And then if I don't take care of that, then it's the next
Yeah. I mean, you do have to find some time, right? You do have to find some time to process and organize, review. Think of the alternative, which is just to remember things. Think how hard it is to have all these, because what you're asking about is collection buckets, right? And you should try, if you can, to have fewer. Maybe you have too many, I don't know. Go back to the slide where it's like the 3 rules of collection buckets. Maybe you have too many, maybe they're not able to collect all your open loops, and maybe you're not emptying them regularly enough. Maybe you have to make time. I don't know. Maybe that's the solution, is say no to this half hour because I need to process the things for that day, or else the next day will be too crazy. Excuse me. Anything else? Okay, so I'm going to be sending you tomorrow this slide presentation, the video, actually probably not the video tomorrow, we'll need probably a few days to process it, my list of curated resources. So it's just different categories. It's like 3 pages, I think, of what I think are like the best GTD resources. And if you see in this presentation, I go through the different types of apps that I like. These are the ones I recommend. Like number 1 is the one I most recommend. On task management, calendar, reference, list making. And here are the prices. Reading lists, time tracking, reminders, habit formation. Yeah. So you can take a look at those in the presentation. Yeah? Oh, good point. Thank you. Okay, so what does this have to do with Bruce Lee and Jackie Chan? It's a bit of a stretch, but I've been watching lately some Bruce Lee and Jackie Chan movies, and Bruce Lee always has economy of movement, right? The guy comes behind him to attack him. He doesn't jump into a refrigerator and flip over a saw and kick the chair. He just does one hit. So you can think of that as being lazy, right? He takes the shortest, fastest possible action to take care of what he's doing. Second, self-awareness over self-discipline. There's no doubt that Bruce Lee was self-disciplined. I mean, to have abs like that. But he was also very self-aware, and you see that in his quotes, in his writings, the way he lived his life. He was a very philosophical man. And I think that relates to the way that he fought, actually. It was very mindful. And the third was to not run with the crowd. And I don't know a ton about Bruce Lee's life, but I know that he was very influential, that he stood out, that he was a role model to a lot of people, that he lived his life in a very pure and principled way. So, nothing down on Jackie Chan. I'm sure he's a very cool guy. But when you think about how you're going to get stuff done in your day-to-day life, think Bruce Lee. Thank you guys so much for coming, and stick around and say hi if you can.